Hey everybody, Omar here, the Knife Shark Guy, and I am back with another fun-filled video for you. And today we're going to highlight another knife maker that I think is really more a lot of people's style. Unlike Andre Thorburn, you know, when you saw his knives the other day, if you want to check out that video, you can check it out on my channel. It's the one before this one. Andre Thorburn does a lot of things very elegantly with the materials. He uses a lot of rare stuff, things like white Westinghouse micarta, and he's got like the fancy file work on his knives, and you know, he just ramps it all the way up. But yet he doesn't make it so that it's so way out there that you don't really know that it's, or it doesn't really seem like a knife. Same thing with this guy. This is Willem Steenkamp. If you're looking to get your first custom knife, yes, I do recommend Thorburn, but I also recommend this guy for those of you guys that are not into the more elegant, the more, maybe, you know, the more, like, I guess I would say pocket knives that look a little bit too much like jewelry, look like a little too nice to be carrying. If you're not into that, you might want to check out Willem Steenkamp. Now, this guy is sort of your everyday carry knife maker. He doesn't do a lot of, like, you won't see a tactical knife in his arsenal of knife making. Usually everything that he has is basically an everyday carry. So if you could imagine like a regular knife made by maybe Spyderco or ZT, if you can imagine that knife maybe ramped up with much more higher quality materials, much more tighter tolerances, then Willem Steenkamp is your guy. So in front of you, you see three different types of the knives that he makes. This one is one of my favorites. This is actually a front flipper piece that he makes. First off, the action on all of his knives are incredible. Andre Thorburn exclusively uses ceramic bearings. Willem Steenkamp doesn't. He uses tool steel bearings, but nevertheless, his knives are smooth. Again, you know, different knife maker, different set of materials. Still, one thing in common, they have high quality. They pump out high quality. So, in front of you, you see three different knives here. This one is actually a one-of-a-kind piece by Willem Steenkamp. This is made with brown micarta. It's got the gold liners on it, as you guys can see. It's got a nice gold titanium pocket clip, and then the pivot is also gold. So everything on this knife just melds really well as far as aesthetics. It's a really handsome looking knife. It's a really sleek looking knife, but it's not so sleek that, you know, you probably would be too afraid to use it. So his style of knife making is more for the everyday carry type of guy. I don't believe he has any knives over 3.5 inches. I might be wrong on that, but as far as I know, I have not seen any of his knives at the, you know, higher than 3.5. This one, in fact, is 3.25 inches in length. This one, I think, is like 2.59, just shy of a 3-inch blade. So it's a really small knife, and of course, this one is sort of like a 2.5-inch small everyday carry. This one is made with the G10 and carbon fiber mixed together. One of the things that he does do also is he does try to make use of the backspacer. Not so wildly, but he does use it fairly wildly. All the backspacers are made, well, this one's made of, both of these are made with carbon fiber. And this one here is made with the same material as the handle, the brown micarta on there. So he does use a plethora of materials, but he uses them sort of like minimalistically, in a sense that your eyes aren't going to be overwhelmed with so many materials that you can't figure out what you have in your pocket. Because knives don't have to have a lot of fancy things on them to make them aesthetically pleasing. These are 3 examples of the types of knives that he puts out where there's maybe only 1 or 2 or at tops 3. Unlike Thorburn, he will use 3, 4, 5 different types of materials all shoved into one knife, and you know, your mind is like just spinning when you see that stuff. Unlike Thorburn, he doesn't have any file work on his knives, okay, as you guys can see. So this might be more a lot of your guys' speeds, especially if you're thinking about getting your first custom. Maybe you're like into ZTs, or maybe you're more into Spydercos. You know, you don't want to go so far out there in getting your first custom that it's probably just too overwhelming. Maybe Willem Steenkamp is the one for you. Very, very smooth action on all of his knives. His knives are always perfectly centered. One thing that Willem Steenkamp is famous for on most of his knives is this feature right here, the crowning of the top of the blade there. Maybe I'll open it so you guys can see it a little better. So, as you can see, it's kind of round on top, which is kind of a nice feature in case, you know, you're going to be using your knife to maybe push down on something. It won't hurt so much. But that crowning is just so attractively pretty to see. You hardly ever see it on knives, and Willem Steenkamp is a master of that rounding appearance. I haven't seen that on a Thorburn knife. It's not necessarily exclusive to the maker, but it's just what he does. And when you see that look, you see a crown round on there on the top of that knife, that's something that your eyes will automatically move to. He just really does it really well. And it's a full round crowning too, even a much more, I'm going to say a much more better looking round crowning than even Chris Reeve, who also crowns all of his blades on the top. This one's a little bit more refined, I think. He spent a little bit more time rounding that out. So that really is nice. His jimping isn't aggressive. It's more for aesthetics, but it does provide some nice traction with your thumb. So he's kind of a half and half knife maker where his stuff is sort of aesthetically pleasing, but there's also a purpose to it as far as you using the knife. So here's the same kind of jimping on there. It's not so close together. So Willem Steenkamp makes his knives both with CNC machining and definitely also by hand. Excuse me. This is an example of one of his front flippers. Again, crown round on top. Really very nice. Nice with the gold liners on there. He's also got the nice black. It almost doesn't seem like it's titanium. It looks like plastic at a glance, but actually it's not. It's titanium, but it's got the plastic look. I think that's kind of a little weird. I don't know if that's cool or not, but it's a little weird. But it does look nice. So, his knives ship in a case like this. If you wanted to get to know a lot of custom knife makers, they don't do overstep with the packaging, but they do some packaging that at least is enough to merit the knife that's inside of it. You also get, with Willem Steenkamp, a really nice sort of cloth with his name on it. Right there, Willem Steenkamp. These cloths are like a different color every time. I don't think I've seen 2 of the same, which is weird because I own 3 of his. But whenever I go to the Blade Gallery and I ask to see a knife there and I ask to see Willem Steenkamp, every time they pull out this cloth, it's like a different one. It's never the same. You would think that they would, you'd see a different one, but actually I haven't. I have yet to see one that's exactly the same. They seem to be different, but, this is part of his packaging. His knife on the casing, it's got this leather patch over it with his name engraved on it. So it's really kind of nice. You get a much more nicer looking, excuse me, a nicer looking case with the knife with this sort of like wool or I don't know, sheep's looking type casing to protect the knife. It's really very nice. And of course you get the most important thing in the package, the certificate of authenticity. Again, there's his name, there's the name of the knife. The steel, of course, is M390. It's got carbon fiber and G10 mixed in together. That, I don't know how he did that. I mean, that is absolutely insane. How do you have G10 and carbon fiber? Does he melt it together? I have no idea how that's done. But it does give a nice little 3D effect on the knife. So it's really very pretty. So the style of the knife, like I said, it's more of the everyday man's carry. There's nothing wild about it. It doesn't look very tactical. The blade shapes 90% of the time are going to be drop point blades. It's just what he produces. And definitely a knife maker to be reckoned with. He has an amazing eye for detail. What I like about this knife is it's kind of got that Western look. The pivot with the black and the white mixed in together kind of looks like, yeah, like something a cowboy would be carrying in his pocket if he were out, you know, something maybe Doc Holliday would have on him or something. It just looks really kind of American, even though it's a South African knife. The pivot with the silver look on it, along with the pocket clip, that silver really pops on the knife. So he makes really good use of the aesthetics on his knife. So there you have it, Willem Steenkamp. I hope I didn't go too long on this video. I just wanted to highlight this knife maker for those of you guys out there that are thinking about maybe getting your first custom and you don't know where to look. I would definitely choose Willem Steenkamp. There's nothing bizarre about his looks. There's nothing wild about the way he presents his knives. It's just a really nice and yet fancy enough looking EDC carry. Anybody would love to have something like this on them in their pocket to use. It's also one thing is it's also not so fancy that you'd be afraid to use it. This is definitely not made for safe cleaning. I haven't used this knife yet, but these two have been fairly used quite well. This one I have yet to use. I haven't had the opportunity, but yeah, I'm going to be using this knife. All my knives in my collection have been used, so you know, you don't want to like not use the knife, because basically what's going to happen is if you're not going to use the knife, no matter how expensive it is, it's pretty much going to just wind up as cash again, so for something else. So you know, try and use the knives when you get them, especially if you really like them a lot, which I do in this case. So yeah, Willem Steenkamp, definitely a knife maker I would look into if you wanted to get a custom knife, and maybe you don't want to go with anything too exotic, because when it comes to South African knives, guys, there's a lot of choices out there, a lot of them. You're gonna find some that look so bizarre they couldn't possibly be knives, and there are some knife makers that actually have their knives that look like that. If you go to the Blade Gallery and check out some of the knives, some of the South African knives out there, your eyes are going to pretty much tell you what it is that you like. I'm going to guarantee a lot of you guys that are into ZTs, Spydercos, and all those types, this is probably your first stop is Willem Steenkamp, just because his knives look elegant enough, but yet not so elegant that, number one, you wouldn't want to use it, or number two, it's going to wind up as a safe queen. That's not what his knives scream. His knives, all of his knives in his lineup, they all scream, just use me. Just use me. Case in point, when I first got my first Thorburn, I felt that way. I was like, man, this is so pretty. I'm never going to use it, and I wound up using it. But it took a while to get me to actually use the knife, because his stuff has got such beautiful things on it. You don't want to ruin it. You don't want to get it all scratched up or whatever, but Knives are made to be used. They're not made to be safe cleaned. You know, it's fine if you wind up getting maybe a full dress piece. I can understand that, but or maybe even a one-of-a-kind like this one. But this knife here is a one-of-a-kind. I've been using it. So, you know, something to think about if you're, you know, if you're afraid to go into customs and everything is gonna wind up being a safe clean. It's like, my God, but I spent all this money for it just to put in a safe and never use it. So, yeah. Willem Steenkamp, definitely a knife maker I highly recommend for those of you out there that are kind of like on the fence, maybe getting your first custom knife and you're looking at the South African customs. Willem Steenkamp's your guy. Once again, I hope this interesting video has maybe enlightened a lot of you. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe I've just been blabbing on and on and on about absolutely nothing. Hope to hear from you on your comments. Any questions you have, please feel free to comment on my channel. I will answer any question you guys would like to know about any of the knife makers you see in my that I will be highlighting as the days go by. At least who knows when I'll get another knife. So I'll keep doing videos for you and some more stuff. And you know, in a few weeks, I've got some other videos that are coming, so, but in the meantime, let's highlight some of these knife makers that I have in my collection. Maybe it'll open up some of you guys to get your first custom. This is Omar, the Knife Shark Guy, signing off, hoping you'll find one of these 3 beautiful pieces of sharp art in your collection. Hope you guys are staying safe out there, and God bless. Have a good night.